Welcome back to the Paranormal Experiences podcast. This is Joy Kilb alongside Fallon once again for part 4. We are going to talk about the creature under the bed and also a scary experience being locked in an attic. Fallon, please start with the attic experience first.
So my family moved into a house in Mahanoy City in Pennsylvania, and when we had moved into this house, me and my sister got to pick our rooms for the first time, and my sister ended up choosing the bedroom to the farthest upstairs, and I ended up choosing the one next to hers that was like connected in the hall. And right in between our two rooms was a staircase that would go up to the attic. And when we had first moved into this house, there was also a closet underneath the attic stairs. And one thing we thought was interesting as we were exploring the house is that underneath the staircase, we found odd things in the closet, things that had gotten left behind. There were jars full of what looked like sand from a beach that had shells and odd little, relics kind of inside of it. And there was like papers that had been destroyed over time that you really couldn't read anymore. And we ended up cleaning that out when we had moved in. So originally my mom had turned the attic into like a play area for us kids. And up there, that's where we pretty much like kept our toys and our video games and stuff like that, so that our rooms, because they were smaller, weren't so, packed. So my sister and I used to go into the attic a lot of times, to hang out or do stuff together. And one time when we had decided to go up and get something, my sister had sent me alone. I knew where it was. I knew, where to go to get it. So I had climbed the stairs to go up into the attic. And the attic had one light bulb that was attached to a string. And that's the way you would have to turn on the light. There was no switch at the bottom or anything like that. So I had climbed the stairs and I had gone up and I had turned on the light. And this was probably right when it was about getting dark at nighttime. We were just kind of hanging out. And so I went up, I got the object, and I heard the door slam at the bottom of the stairs. And I thought, okay, maybe my sister had closed it or somebody had closed it to, walk by. So I got the item. I was walking down the stairs and I tried to open the door. And the door wouldn't open. It was like locked. The only thing about this is that you couldn't lock the attic door from the inside. You had to lock it from the outside. So I figured, okay, maybe when it closed, it locked automatically. So I knocked on the door and I asked my sister to open it, thinking that maybe it accidentally locked, when it closed. And at first she didn't respond. So I'm just, continuing to try to open the door. Maybe it's just stuck, but I couldn't get it. So I start banging harder and I start asking for my sister to unlock the door. And after a few seconds, she finally comes and she tries to open the door from the other side. And as she's trying to unlock the door, she's telling me, I'm sorry, I can't, it's stuck, it won't open. And I'm like, well, just open it, like I can't open it from the inside, it won't open. So we're both kind of, I'm trying to help push the door while she's trying to open the door. And then suddenly the light goes out and I'm standing in the darkness on the other side of the door. And my sister stops trying for a moment and we're just kind of wondering why it won't open. And so finally I give the door one more push and the door opens. And I quickly, go out, and we never had that experience again. We never had, the problem of opening the door. I never had it locked behind me. Now this could just be a coincidence, but it was just kind of odd considering what happened next in the same house.
And by what happened next in the same house, you're referring to the creature under the bed, correct?
Correct.
So please tell us your recollection from that experience that you had on that night.
So the only other experience I had in this house happened late one night when we were all asleep. And at this time, I wasn't sleeping with any lights on or TV anymore. I would sleep in the dark. And on this night, the lights were off. I'm in bed and I'm trying to sleep. And all of a sudden, I feel a bump from underneath the bed coming straight through the mattress. I could feel it as if somebody had pounded against it underneath me. And it quickly stopped. So, I just laid back down, closed my eyes, and a couple moments later, the same thing happened. Except this time, it felt like even more pressure up against my back from underneath the bed. And so I laid there waiting for it to happen again. And this time when it did, it almost shook the entire bed underneath me. And so now I'm freaked out and I'm sitting on top of the bed. And I'm not sure if I want to get off the bed and run out of the room to my mom's room, or if I just want to, wait for it to stop. Maybe it's one of our dogs, since we had a couple dogs at the time. I figured maybe one of them was underneath the bed. But when it happened again and the entire, bed shook, I figured, okay, I've got two options. One, I can jump off the bed and run out of the room, or two, I can look under the bed and see what's under there. So I decide that I'm going to look underneath the bed in case it is one of the dogs. So I lean over the bed and I pick up the blanket that's hanging down over the side and I look underneath. And the only thing I see staring back at me are these bright red eyes and just pitch darkness surrounding those eyes. And I'm just staring at this thing. And then these two hands with razor sharp claws reach out from underneath the bed coming towards me. And I could almost see the face start to shift in the darkness, which seems to be a grin. So I quickly at that point jumped off the bed, ran out of the room, and went to my mother's room. And she woke up, came into my room, looked under the bed, turned on the light, and there was nothing underneath. And I had never had that experience again.
Why do you think that you only had these two occurrences at this one location? Why do you think nothing ever happened there since those two events?
It is strange that at my father's house I had had a lot of experiences from when I was young to even when I got older. But when we lived in Mahanoy, I wasn't sure if what I had experienced was either connected to the house or if it was connected to me.
So you're saying that you could be possessed or be carrying these certain entities with you where you go, instead of it being a current location situation instead.
From the research I had done, I had found that people who had a sixth sense, or mediums or psychics, whatever you want to call them, who are able to either communicate with the dead or see the dead, they usually have these experiences because of that sixth sense. So I found that in most of the other homes I had lived in, if I did have experiences, I wasn't really sure if it had to do with the location as much as it had to do with me, considering I had seen these things from such a young age.
So then to pick up in part 5, we'll be talking about the third current location in your life that you had experiences at. Is this correct?
This is correct. I had mentioned it once before, and I had lived at this house for about 10 years, and that was in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Yet, from my recollection of what we've talked about, you've only ever had 3 experiences at this house that you lived at for 10 years. Is this correct?
Yes, the first would have been the voice quarter experience that I had with my mother. That had taken place at this residence. And then in the next podcast, we will be talking about the other 2 experiences.
Okay, then thank you, Fallon, for joining us, and we will pick up back on part 5. Thank you for listening to part 4 of the Paranormal Experiences podcast. This was Joy Kill, and thank you. Have a scary night.